Deep dives and blue skies. Welcome back to Talking Blue with Nick, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking Blue, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find. I'm your host, Nick. Today, you are listening to episode 86 of Talking Blue. We are here to recap another series, the second series of the year. We're recapping the Dodgers and the Guardians series, which wrapped up last night, Wednesday night. It was unfortunately not a great series. The Dodgers dropped 2 out of 3, lost the first game, were able to win the second game, but couldn't win game 3 to split or take the rubber match. So the Dodgers lose their second series. Their record drops to 4-2. So we're going to talk about all that. The offense was pretty cold. We're going to talk about some numbers at the end of the pod. We're going to talk about the 3 guys that pitched. The most notably Sasaki's first start, Ohtani's first start. We'll get into all that stuff. So before we do that, as always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of the videos dropping. You can follow us on all social media at Talkin' Blue Pod. That is Instagram. That is X. That is TikTok. You can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. Yes, I changed my X. For those of you who might have been used to the previous name, at Nick Talking Ball on X. If you like the Dodgers, if you like baseball, perfect guy to follow. I tweet all about the Dodgers and all about baseball. If you want to listen to a baseball-only podcast talking about all things baseball, I created a brand new podcast. It's called Baseball Mondays, a recap show where I talk about everything that happened in the previous week of baseball, and obviously it's on Mondays. Episode 2 just dropped a couple days ago, recapping the first weekend. Episode 3 will come out the next Monday, recapping the week that we're currently in. So, Baseball Mondays. The link will be in the description below, and it'll be all over my social media if you want to watch or listen to those podcasts. They're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So let's waste no time and let's get to the recaps. Again, if you're new, we're going to recap each game, just quickly go through like the scoring and what happened, give my thoughts on the game, then we'll move on to the next game. And like I said, today we're going to talk about Sasaki and Ohtani, how they looked on the mound. We'll do a little bit of stuff on the offense, and really what I'm going to dig into at the end is some numbers, some things that can prove, or I should say, kind of show some concerns with where the offense is 6 games into the year, and really a lot of optimism as to why they're going to break out soon. So we'll get to that at the end. But before that, let's get to the game. So game 1, which was on Monday, March 30th, Roki Sasaki makes his first start of the season. His first start since May of 2025. He takes on the left-hander Parker Messick. All right, so scoring gets underway in the top of the third. Steven Kwan doubles into right field to make it 1-0 Guardians. It would remain 1-0 all the way until the 7th inning. All right, Sasaki's out of the game at this point. Justin Robleski is in the game. A bases-loaded walk to Rhys Hoskins scores Austin Hedges to make it 2-0. It was actually an incredible at-bat from Hoskins because he was down 0-2 and worked a full count and then eventually walked to make it 2-0, and then later on in that inning, Daniel Schneemann double that would double the Guardians' lead to make it 4-0. Pretty much would put the game out of reach, and then later on in the 9th inning, Dodgers would rally to avoid getting shut out. A Mookie Betts double, Freddie Freeman, he would ground out to make it 4-2, but the score would hold and the Guardians would hang on, and the Dodgers lose at that time their first game of the season. Sasaki for 4, Tanner Scott for 1, and then Justin Robleski actually came out of the bullpen and pitched 4 innings. And Robleski is likely to pitch this Sunday in Washington and get his first start of the year. Now that the schedule is kind of underway to more normal stuff, and the Dodgers will kind of go to pretty much a 6-man or a 5-man, 6-man rotation. I think it's actually a 5-man rotation. Anyways, Parker Messick, the left-hander, pitched really well against the Dodgers. 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, no earned runs, no walks, and 5 strikeouts. So he pretty much shut down the Dodgers. And then eventually Caden Smith, the Guardians closer, came in and did allow 2 earned runs. Like I said, Dodgers got close, but no cigar. So again, the offense wasn't great in this game, but I'm going to save a lot of that stuff to the end. So we're going to pretty much just talk about Sasaki from this game. As you guys know, one of the more interesting things to pay attention to, especially early in the season. And you know that I was excited to see what, is excited, antsy just to see what he looked like in this game. So Sasaki's final line, 4 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. All right. He had 9 swings and misses in the game. His average velocity in this game was 97.6 miles an hour, so just under 98, so he was throwing pretty hard. And he mixed in the slider and splitter. I believe that he did throw a sinker at some point in this game, but on the chart and on the pitch usage chart, it doesn't show any sinkers, so maybe I guess that didn't get recorded, or maybe he didn't actually throw sinkers, but I could have swore I saw him throw like 2 or 3 sinkers. But anyways, my thoughts on watching Sasaki and how he looked. Given the expectations, unfortunately, where they've been at with Sasaki, given his struggles at the big league level, his struggles as a starter, his struggles coming in, in spring training, when you consider the expectations, it was actually a pretty decent start. All right, so what I'll kind of talk about is like some positives and some negatives, and then what we need to see, for Sasaki to continue to do, and then also, kind of continue to graduate. But like I said, overall, a pretty solid start for Sasaki. You do have to feel pretty good about it. So the positives. The first thing was definitely the command. He only had 2 walks, and for the most part, he was in and around the strike zone. He wasn't, crazy erratic. He didn't have any innings that snowballed on him where he just could not find the strike zone and had to get taken out, or have a 2 2/3 inning start, 2 2/3 inning start, or just no disasters. So that's good. Another positive with Sasaki is that he actually didn't give up a lot of hard contact. So the Guardians are usually a team that doesn't strike out a lot. So it's not a shocker that it didn't pile up the strikeouts, but they did not, put a bunch of balls in place. So the average exit velocity against his pitches on his 4-seam fastball was 89 miles an hour, and then on the slider, 72, and then the splitter, 76. So if you watch the game, there were really not that many hard hit balls. Really, the only couple that I can remember was the Stephen Kwan double, and then Kyle Manzardo lined out to right field. I'm sure there was another 1 or 2 hard hit balls, but he really didn't give up many hard hit balls. So again, it just shows the potential stuff and potential, capabilities that Sasaki has when you can throw that hard, sitting about 98 miles an hour. So he pretty much was sitting like 97 to 99. I think later in the game there were a couple 96s, but when you basically throw 97 to 99, and you have a really, really good splitter, and then you can also mix in a third pitch. When you're able to do that in and around the strike zone, no surprise that he wasn't getting hit hard. That, he is a guy that has a lot of talent, and when you consider all that, and then on top of that, his extension, his arm slot, he's got a big, long motion on the mound. Like, it's no surprise that he is can be an uncomfortable at bat for certain hitters. But the fact that he's so far has been able to hold the velocity, that's another big thing. Last year, early on, the velocity fluctuated, so it's going to be some time. Some time is going to have to pass by for Sasaki to prove that he's healthy, is staying healthy, and the velocity does hold. So we'll have to see how that goes. Obviously, this was the first start. But overall, again, solid start. And what I also liked is that he has so far proven that he does have decent command on the new slider cutter that he's throwing. I do like that on Baseball Savant, the website I'm using right now. They do have the pitch labeled as a slider because he and the Dodgers have called it a cutter. If you really watched that pitch and didn't have a label to it, you would probably guess it's a slider because it's not like a little cutter that just has a little bit of movement. A perfect example right now is Cam Schlittler of the Yankees. If you've watched him pitch at all, he throws like a true mid-90s cut fastball that has some, noticeable cut to it, but it's not like this big breaking ball. And Sasaki is not throwing a big sweeping slider or anything like that, but it's definitely more of a slider than a cutter. So he has seemed to have pretty decent command on that pitch. He threw a lot of first pitch sliders that he could kind of drop in there for, get me over strike, which I like. It does show, again, I like that, given when you talk about his velocity, the elite splitter that he has, and obviously, he's not a reliever right now. He is a starter, and when you're a starter, you got to have multiple pitches. You really need like 3 to 4, maybe even 5 pitches. You can get away with having 3, but you better have like 2 pretty great pitches. So I do like that so far the new pitch that he's implemented this season, the slider cutter, has worked, and he has a feel for it, and it like looks like a pitch that he can continue to work on. And he threw 28% in this game. He actually threw more sliders than he threw splitters. A lot of them were to right-handed hitters. The one thing about the slider is that, Sasaki is one of these guys that, because he's had these crazy command issues, when you're a pitcher on the mound and you get into those rare moments where it's like you cannot even find the strike zone, like forget your command, like, oh, I that pitch was supposed to be on the outside corner and I missed up or I missed in. When it gets like that elementary to where you're not even throwing strikes, you kind of, when you're out there on the mound, you kind of dumb it down to, I literally just have to throw strikes. And then what does that mean? When you're literally just aiming to get the ball down the middle, which leads to what? You getting hit hard. And the slider that he has so far seems like a pitch that he has a good feel for to get in the strike zone, which is fine. But there were a lot of backup sliders that he threw. So, normally as a right-handed pitcher, the sliders, it tended to be down and away to a right-handed hitter, in that left-handed batter's box side of the plate. He was throwing a lot that were left up and away. Again, think up and into a right-handed hitter. Just like I talked about with Emmett Sheehan the other day with his changeup, when you're leaving the ball up like that, potential disaster because the ball is left up, it can get hit hard. So I want us to continue to see the improvement on the slider. I do want that pitch to become a legit weapon because with his splitter, he's got a great chance, just like Yamamoto, to be really good against left-handed hitters. But when you're a 3-pitch guy, you definitely need a pitch you can throw against righties, which is what this slider is looking like it's going to be. It's at least what he's going to try to do against right-handed hitters. So it has pretty good movement. It's pretty sharp. He's just got to work, continue to work and getting that ball down. And you saw it in this game. He got a fairly decent amount of chase. So again, Sasaki is not a pinpoint command strike thrower. You can be a successful pitcher in this league and allow walks. There are many great pitchers who the one thing that, their one bugaboo is allowing walks. Blake Snell has 2 Cy Youngs, and he has never been a guy who limits walks. That's never been his game. So you can get away with allowing walks, but you can't just have uncompetitive pitches and, always have traffic. You'll never be successful. If you could just prove that you can get in the strike zone a little bit, especially with the fastball, it's going to lead to a lot more chase on the splitter, especially because the splitter without, setting it up with a fastball is nasty to begin with and has a ton of movement. And then again, that'll help improve the slider. I think Dalton Rushing after the game even said that to reporters, that he thought that his slider could help out Sasaki's fastball. So, it's always work in progress with Roki. This was definitely a step in the right direction. But the last thing I'll say about him is that I want to continue to see graduation and, getting better, because second year in the league, again, I'm not saying like the time is ticking with Sasaki or anything like that, but you got to continue to see the improvement. We saw you get through 4 innings. We saw some decent swing and miss. We saw the velocity holds. We saw the new slider looks, pretty solid. But now you got to be able to graduate. Can you get through 5 innings? Can you pitch into the 6th? Can we see the strikeouts, improve a little bit? 4 strikeouts in 4 innings is fine, but can you get up to the 6, 7, even 8 strikeouts? Again, he didn't allow a lot of hard hit contact, which is good. So if you can he's close to putting it all together to being like, more of that potential pitcher that we want to see with him. He's got the velocity. He's now has a third pitch. I'm pretty sure he has a sinker. I thought he threw it in this game. It doesn't show it on my chart here, but I would like to see that pitch a little bit more too, especially obviously against right-handed hitters. That's it. Just we want to see, can he continue to improve and get more strikeouts? If you compare strikeouts with that pretty low average exit velocity, that's where you can become an elite pitcher. So we'll see. His next time through will be against the Blue Jays. So that will be a true task. A team that also does not strike out a ton. But you got to let the stuff hang out, and you got to attack the strike zone, and you can be a successful pitcher. So that's pretty much it. I didn't want to go too long on Sasaki. I liked what I saw, but continue to get better, build on this, continue to graduate. We'll see what he does next week in Toronto. So that's pretty much it. There was no offense in this game until the very end of the game. Dodgers had 9 hits, so it's like almost everyone in the lineup contributed with a hit, but that was literally it. And they weren't able to get that one big hit they needed to break through and tie the game. So that was their first loss. We'll go to the second game. I'll try to be a little bit quicker so we can get to some of the offensive stuff at the end. So game 2 was on Tuesday. Shohei Ohtani makes his season debut on the mound, taking on Tanner Bybee of the Guardians. So the scoring began in the bottom of the fourth. Andy Pages, who's actually been the Dodgers' best hitter to start the year 1 week into the season, a single into right field to put the Dodgers up 1-0. Later on in the bottom of the sixth, Max Muncy with his first home run of the year. He hit it out to right field. Dodgers go up 2-0. In the eighth inning, a Teoscar Hernandez single would make it 3-0, and then another Andy Pages single to make it 4-0, his second RBI. Edwin Diaz actually came into the ninth inning with the 4-0 lead, and he did allow a walk and another hit. So a run eventually came in, and the Guardians made it 4-1, but the score would hold, and Diaz would put them to bed, and the game ends 4-1 is the score. The Dodgers win game 2 of the series. Shohei Ohtani for 6, Alex Vesia for 1, Jack Dreyer for 1, Edwin Diaz for 1. So again, we'll talk mostly about Shohei. Again, Muncy and Pages did some good things offensively, but we'll get to Shohei and how he looked in his first start. He looked pretty good. So his final line, 6 innings pitched, only 1 hit allowed, no earned runs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. All right, he had 11 swings and misses, so wasn't necessarily piling up the whiffs. But like I said, the Guardians are a team that generally doesn't swing and miss a ton, even though they're usually never a big-time offensive team. Shohei threw a fair amount of curveballs in this game. He really leaned on that pitch, and no surprise, it's a good pitch for him. So I was interested to see how Shohei would use and incorporate his splitter. That was a pitch that Shohei, I've talked about this before, earlier in his career, that was by far his best pitch. Not by far, but I don't mean to say that in a way like his other pitches weren't good, but he had a very elite splitter. As the injuries came about, as his career developed, he's kind of gone away from that pitch. Didn't throw a ton of it in 2025. Did start to see it more towards the end of the year, and then throughout the postseason, throughout spring training. He threw 15 in this game. He had 5 whiffs on that pitch. So that pitch got a lot of swings and misses. Didn't throw any to right-handed hitters. So they were all to left-handed hitters, which is, for the most part, as a right-handed pitcher, that's where you're going to throw most of your splitters. But I wouldn't be surprised if that number continues to tick up. The fastball velocity was 96.8, so pretty good. I mean, that is a little bit down from where he was last year, but that's not a surprise because he was averaging like over 98 miles an hour last year. I don't expect him to do that this year. But if you watched him on TV, it was 96 to 99. The velocity was no issue or anything like that. Continued to throw a ton of different pitches, forcing fastball, curveball, splitter, sweeper, sinker, and slider. So yeah, he looked pretty sharp. He did allow the 3 walks, right? Was it 3? Yeah, 3 walks. But 6 strikeouts is good. I like that in his first start, he went 6 innings. He threw, how many pitches did he throw? 87 pitches. So, again, I just like that first start of the year. The restraints have been fully lifted. He threw the full repertoire, the full pitch mix, like I said, all sweepers, sliders, curveballs, mixed in some sinkers, mixed in the slider that he throws. So he threw a ton of pitches, different pitches, which is usually the way Shohei's going to attack it. Similarly to Yamamoto, he's going to throw curveballs, sliders, like he's going to throw the whole kitchen sink at you. The velocity looked good. He didn't pile up the swings and misses or the strikeouts, but he looked great, and it looked encouraging, and it just shows that if he's able to stay healthy this year and he's able to make his start every time it comes up, he's not going to throw, have 30 starts in the year, but if he's able to make 22 to 25 starts, he's going to put up some great numbers on the mound. And, they were even talking about how pretty much the last thing for Shohei to accomplish, definitely individually, like an individual award, but really the last thing for him to accomplish is a Cy Young. He's got an MVP. He's got a World Series. He has Silver Slugger awards, all that kind of stuff. The last thing he really has on his, potential, the only missing thing on his list would be a Cy Young. I don't know if he'll get there again. I think that's just going to be a lot to ask, but, the way he's looked in a Dodger uniform, like the way he pitched last year and the way he's looked early on in, how he looked early on in spring this year and early in this start, he looks like if he pitches a full season, he's going to be one of the best 10 pitchers in the game. So, yeah, I don't really have much else to say. Shohei was great. And then the only two guys in this game who did some good things, Muncy and Pages, they each had 2 hits. Like I said, Muncy hit the home run. They've pretty much been the best hitters on the Dodgers to start the year. Muncy has an OPS in the 900s. Pages in the 800s. Alex Freeland's got off to a decent start, but limited playing time. And also Will Smith. Pretty much it, though. That's pretty much it. And like I said, we're going to get to that. Get to those guys struggling. So we'll finish up with the third game. Game 3, April 1st. Officially, we are in April. April Fools. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, his second start, and that is against Gavin Williams, the hard-throwing right-hander of the Guardians. In the third inning, Gabriel Arias homers to dead center. This actually made it 2-0. The Guardians scored earlier in the game on a stolen base attempt of third base. Will Smith threw the ball into left field, so the Guardians went up 1-0. Then a couple of batters later, the shortstop Gabriel Arias homers to dead center to make it 2-0. Later on, the Guardians would double their lead, 4-0 on a 2-run homer from Jose Ramirez. Freddie Freeman would homer in the bottom of the ninth to avoid getting shut out, but that's pretty much that's all she wrote. Dodgers lose by a score of 4-1. Gavin Williams pretty much mowed down the Dodgers. 7 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, 2 hits, 0 earned runs, 3 walks. He was throwing gas with an absolutely hammer of a curveball. Like very similar to the way Tyler Glasnow's curveball looks, like big break and hard velocity. So he was pretty filthy. And then Cade Smith came in again to pitch in the ninth and did give up another run. So the Dodgers did put up some runs against Cade Smith, who's a really good reliever for the Guardians. Let's get to Yamamoto. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. Another solid start from Yamamoto. Will Klein also pitched in this game. Tanner Scott, 1/3 of an inning. He did give up that home run to Jose Ramirez. Don't want to kill Scott. He's looked pretty good to start the year. The pitch Jose Ramirez hit out was kind of like way above the strike zone. So, to me, you kind of have to tip your cap to Jose Ramirez. Scott's looked pretty good. It's still early in the year, so at some point we'll talk about relievers and, some guys like Will Klein and Trinan have looked pretty good. But it's still very early where those guys have really only pitched 1, 2, 3 innings. So Yamamoto, another, solid start. He did not as good as he did in his first start against the Diamondbacks, because in that game he did get a lot of swing and miss. In this game, he only had 10 whiffs. He's continued to throw more splitters than four-seam fastballs, 26% splitter, 25% fastball, threw a decent amount of cutters in this game. Usually the curveball is his third most used pitch. Only threw 11% curveball, 10 curveballs. He did throw 7 sinkers, and he did continue to mix in the sinker. That was something that I was interested to see if we would see more of, because he began to mix that pitch in against the Diamondbacks. Did throw a couple of those, and it did lead to 3 whiffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if going forward we see Yamamoto continue to, increase the usage on that slider, especially because, like I've said, it's a good pitch for him to have against right-handed hitters. The splitter he's going to use to both batters. He'll use it to righties. He'll use it with lefties. The slider really does give him a good potential out pitch, a good swing and miss pitch against right-handed hitters. So we'll see if that continues. The four-seam fastball was where it normally is at 95. Got 1 whiff. Not much to say with Yamamoto. That brings his ERA on the year to an even 3. He has pitched, I believe, how many innings has Yamamoto pitched so far? 12 innings pitched, I think. 12 innings pitched, an ERA of 3, 0.83 whip, only 8 strikeouts in 12 innings. So, so far he's been fine. Nothing wrong with his outings. Nothing crazy. Would like to see a little bit more strikeouts, but so far he's been fine. His next outing will come also against the Blue Jays, who have nightmares about him when they sleep at night. Okay, so the offense. This was the game where the offense, it became very noticeable. I shouldn't say it became noticeable in this game, but they had 12 strikeouts in this game, just had nothing for Gavin Williams. They actually have not been striking out a ton, with the exception of the last 2 games. The Dodgers are usually a team that will strike out and will swing and miss. They are a team that's going to hit the ball over the fence. They're going to walk a lot. But, guys like Muncy, Shohei will strike out at times. Teoscar, Andy Paz, like those are guys that will punch out. So usually it's not unlike them to, have a fair amount of strikeouts. They're one of those analytical teams that will trade, a lot of consistent contact for home runs, because outslugging does lead to wins a lot of the time. You don't want to see a ton of strikeouts. It's just sometimes the makeup of the way these guys hit. Like I said, Muncy, Shohei, even though he's one of the better hitters in the game, that's just the way that their hitting profile is. So it's not a shocker when they're a team when they do strike out a lot. Before these last 2 games, they hadn't had a ton of whiffs, but there's no doubt that there are noticeable guys that are struggling. So the 2 guys that to me are like the most notable are the 2 guys that hit at the top of the lineup, Shohei and Kyle Tucker. Tucker especially has been punching out a little bit more. One of his trademark, qualities is that he's always been a guy who walks a ton and doesn't strike out a lot, which is a great combination. And then when you throw on top of that he, hits for average and hits for power, that's why he's regarded as one of the better players in the game. But no, he definitely seems to be pressing early on in the season, like swinging at some pitches out of the zone and striking out. Shohei as well. He had an at-bat he had an at-bat last night against a left-handed pitcher that came in, which, again, tough at-bat, left on left. And he just threw him 3 straight curveballs, and Shohei just swung at all 3. And the last one wasn't even close. Those are the guys who are most notable to me, and obviously they're at the top of the order, so they're of the most important guys. Mookie has not gotten off to a great start, but I still have liked the quality of some of his at-bats so far. Freddie Freeman is the guy to me who is the most he's hitting 208 with a 615 OPS. Sorry for that. But if you've watched a lot of his at-bats, he's actually gotten robbed of a lot of hits, and he's been making a lot of hard contact, so I'm not really concerned about that. But I just wanted to give some offensive league-wide team rankings that kind of show why I think the Dodgers are going to, break out. I do think that they have been making a lot of hard contact and getting a little bit unlucky. I don't want to lean too much on they're just getting unlucky. They're fine. But MLB offensive ranking. So these are just regular statistics and where they rank among everyone else in Major League Baseball. So batting average, they're hitting .237. That's 11th in Major League Baseball. On base percentage, .307. That is 17th in baseball. That is definitely jarring because they are usually at the top of the leaderboard in that. Slugging percentage, .382. That's 13th in baseball. OPS, .689. That is also 13th. Strikeout percentage, they are 10th. So they have the 10th best. So they actually have not, like I said, been striking out a ton. So that's pretty good. And then walk percentage, this is like the most kind of notable to me. 8.3 walk percentage, 21st. So they have not been walking a lot. All right, now when you go to expected offensive ranking, so expected numbers are numbers that are made based on quality of contact, launch angle, all that kind of stuff, and it kind of creates a number. What is your expected batting average? What should the number be? So it's all based on quality of contact, which again helps take out some of the luck and shows kind of like the true numbers and true like quality of contact. So expected batting average is .265. That would be 4th in Major League Baseball. So like I said, 11th is where they are. Expected batting average is 4th. Expected slug is 3rd. Like I said, they have a .382 slugging percentage, which is 13th. Their expected slug, .447. That would be 3rd. Expected WOBA, expected weighted on base average, 4th, .341. Barrel percentage, they are 1st, 10.6 barrel percentage. So the most percentage of barrels. Hitting the ball, which I think is hitting the ball at 95 miles an hour or above in a certain launch angle. So the most barrels, what Major League Baseball considers a barrel. They have the highest percentage of that in the entire sport. Average exit velocity, 90.2. That's 5th. Chase percentage, 26.2 chase percentage. That's 4th best. So they don't swing at pitches out of the strike zone at the 4th best percentage. And then whiff percentage, again, they actually have not been striking out a lot, which is something they are accustomed to. Whiff percentage, 23.4. That is 6th best, 6th lowest whiff percentage. So it's a little surprising that the numbers are where they are and that many guys are struggling when you consider that they are hitting the ball hard, they are barreling the ball up, the average exit velocities, they're not chasing, and then on top of that, they're not striking out. Because normally, the Dodgers team rankings, all these expected numbers are usually where they are in the actual categories with minus the whiff percentage. Usually they will whiff a lot. So it does kind of show to me that an offensive breakout is coming. One thing I've noticed, this is kind of beside the quality of contact stuff, with the new ABS system, I haven't looked at the numbers. I can probably try to find it, but it looks like the Dodgers are bottom of the leaderboard in terms of challenging. Watching it on TV, it's almost like, do the Dodgers know you're allowed to challenge some strikes? Mookie Betts has had a ton of pitches called against him that he has not challenged. I saw some with Freddie Freeman. I've seen some with Will Smith. The only person who really seems to know that you could challenge is Will Smith when he's behind the plate. He's actually been excellent at it so far. There have been a decent amount of pitches that, like, normally you can kind of tell in live time, like, okay, that was a ball, that was a strike. Will Smith has even had a couple that I was like, ooh, I don't know. Was that looked like a, I don't know if that was a ball or a strike. And then they show the replay and it clipped a small part of the strike zone and they overturn it. So he's been great at that on the catching side. But way too many of the Dodgers have seemed like they are like timid to pull the trigger, or it's not really in their mind that they can challenge. It's so early on. Obviously, we're only a week into the season, so the ABS system is going to be a long process to kind of figure out what's the way to go about it. And it does seem like some teams are going to have the approach of, hey, you can't just challenge everything, of course, but like if you feel like that was the wrong call, challenge it. Because if you think about it, like a lot of people would always automatically go to, well, you should kind of save them for later in the game because in the 9th inning, you might need to challenge an important pitch. But if you think about that, well, what if in the 2nd inning, the game could be won or lost and you don't challenge, say you're losing 1-0 in the 2nd inning, and you have the bases loaded with 2 outs and a guy gets rung up on a pitch that's a ball. and you're like, oh, I don't want to challenge. It's the second inning. It's too early in the game. Well, what if the game is lost right there and you don't score the rest of the game? You know what I'm saying? Like, some teams seem to have that approach, and then it does appear that the Dodgers' approach is like, I don't know. Again, I don't know what their approach is, but wait till later in the game, or just be smart with it. But if you're not challenging calls at all, it kind of defeats the purpose. So, we're going to see how that plays out, but that's something that I've noticed, especially with Mookie Betts. I have noticed like at least 3 or 4 times Mookie has had a pitch called on him that was definitely not a strike, and he didn't challenge it. So I would like to see, as the season goes on, like more of a, throw out some challenges, especially because the Dodgers have a lot of guys who can control the strike zone well. The only time I have noticed so far, I know there was one Teoscar Hernandez challenged, but then there was one in this series that Kyle Freeland challenged. I want to say this was in the first game of the series. He challenged a strike 3 call that was like, it definitely clipped the zone, and he just challenged it. Like, to me, if you save it till those moments later in the game and you're kind of like, well, screw it, it's the 9th inning, like, might as well challenge, that defeats the purpose, because the technology is going to clearly show what the call was. So, the challenge system shouldn't really just be left for like, all right, well, it's late in the game, so screw it, let's challenge. Maybe we'll see what happens. Like, you got to use it when you best think, you can get a call overturned. So anyways, I just would like to see that going forward. But a lot of these numbers, the barrel percentages, the expected batting average, expected slug, does kind of show that the Dodgers have been a little bit unlucky. Watching it on TV, there definitely have been some guys, especially Freddie Freeman. He's at the top of the list for me. He's got a couple of like amazing plays made against him, and then just like hard hit balls that have been caught. A couple balls that have died short at the track. So what I would like to see looking forward as we wrap up this podcast, this weekend they go to Washington. They will take on the Nationals. Obviously, you don't want to take the Nationals lightly. They've actually gotten off to a decent start by their standards, considering that they were pretty much supposed to be like the worst team in the game. But what I would like to see is take advantage of a bad team. I don't necessarily mean like you got to go in there and sweep. I mean, you should go in there and sweep because it's the Nationals, but really what I want to see more than anything is some better offensive numbers. Because if you look up and down the lineup and you look at the 4-headed monster, whatever you want to say, Shohei Ohtani is hitting 167. Kyle Tucker is hitting 174. Mookie Betts is hitting 136. Freddie Freeman is hitting 208. And then Will Smith is actually hitting 200. He's kind of gotten cold after his pretty decent start. Teoscar Hernandez is hitting 238. All right, so I want to see some of those numbers get better. I think it will. I especially think Freddie Freeman is due to bust out. I think Shohei is definitely going to bust out. Obviously, Mookie Betts, we all know, is the guy like you're going to have the most eyeballs on because of what he did last year. I think his quality of at-bats have been pretty decent so far. So I think he is, I think he'll be okay, but you got to see it at some point. You know what I mean? Because if Mookie starts to fall into another slump, that's where we start to get a little nervous. So my final thoughts are, I think the Dodgers offense, I definitely think they're going to be fine, and I think they're due for a breakout soon. It's hard to make these, it's hard to come away with these thoughts and feelings because it's only been 6 games so far that we've watched. So, it's a very small sample size. So we'll see if they can turn it around. I hope you guys enjoyed. It was not the best series, but we'll see what they can do against the Washington Nationals in our nation's capital this weekend. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod. You could follow myself at Nick Talking Ball. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow and subscribe. Baseball Mondays, my new baseball podcast. And that is all I have for you guys. We'll see you this weekend to recap the Dodgers and the Nationals.